data is available on the dark web. And the cost of cybercrime keeps rising and it spreads everywhere. There is an explosion of cybercrime that impacts us in particular because where we are today are technological advances and our societal changes. Changes that have come about due to the integration of computer technology and digital communication in day-to-day lives. And if you think right now it's a challenge, wait till you see where we're going with artificial intelligence and implants that will actually go into humans. That's coming. And so think about having an implant that's actually being manipulated by somebody else. So everywhere we go, we carry computing devices. I carry one myself. And we have more powerful devices we carry than we really create computers. So, and these devices, if you're like me, are with us 24/7. We never get away from them. So our communication is moved from Pony Express, postal mail, to faxing, now to press of a button and that gets around the world instantaneously. This has changed the culture of criminal activity from where they have to go to you to get into things to they can be anywhere in the world and hack into you and get your information. So it no longer requires a physical movement. So the challenge with computer security is not limited to a computer, an iPhone, the software that must be written to be resilient to attack. It is truly transdisciplinary, as Dr. Lebrock said. That involves electrical engineering, where signals can be intercepted and manipulated to disrupt global positioning. Psychology, where understanding and influencing how we respond to what we read is critical to stop phishing and attacks and reduce the effectiveness of social engineering. Medicine, where a patient's life is very dependent upon the records and devices that can be hacked. And the list goes on. The prevalence of security crime and the breadth of disciplines needed to be addressed is the very reason we have this workshop here. It is an emerging field and a growing field that we feel that we can address at this university and across the state. So, as New Mexican, as citizens of the world, we need to develop technologies and leverage this innovation and best practices across all these disciplines to develop a more secure and resilient system for our society. Only now can we have technology that improve our lives and help and protect us as well as grow the economy of this state. So I welcome all of you to this event. I regret that I can't be here the rest of the day, but I know you're going to have a very productive workshop, and I look forward to hearing the results of this. And thank you all for being here today. Thank you very much.
It's now my pleasure to introduce Eric Cornelius. He's our keynote speaker today. He grew up in Ruidoso, New Mexico, so he's one of our own local pros. He earned his bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science in Information Technology here at New Mexico Tech while he was in the Scholarship for Service program. He served in a variety of government positions for 9 years, including a cybersecurity researcher at Idaho National Labs. His boss, Tom, former boss, Tom, is back in the audience. He was stolen away from that position by the Department of Homeland Security, where he became Cyber Ninja. Since leaving DHS in 2013, he served in a number of positions at Cylance. He was Vice President of Innovation, Director of Critical Infrastructure and Industrial Control Systems, Technical Director of Incident Response and Critical Infrastructure. Now in his role, well, actually his role just changed. He was Chief Product Officer and he's now Chief Technology Officer. So they haven't even updated that on the webpage yet. He's working to elevate not only product development and initiatives, but to lead management and corporate development teams to ensure future technologies. Eric brings this wealth of knowledge and long history as a cybersecurity practitioner, consultant, advisor, and product builder to our discussion on cybersecurity entrepreneurship. It is my great pleasure to welcome Eric back to New Mexico Tech for this keynote address.
Cool, so as Dr. Brown mentioned, I'm Chief Technology Officer with now BlackBerry Cylance. So
started a company called Silence in 2012, employee number 11, and we, it was about 2 years to build our product. Our hypothesis was antivirus is broken. Right? Ryan Hermer, co-founder, chief scientist, was formerly the chief scientist at McAfee, where he had 1,250 people who worked for him, that all they did all day, every day was write signatures for malware, and all day, every day, they fell about 50,000 samples behind, and he put his finger up in the air and he said, there's got to be a better way. And so the hypothesis was we could use artificial intelligence to analyze code and make a determination in real time whether or not that code was malicious. We went and pitched this all over the place, and we literally got laughed out of all the rooms. Fast forward 39 months after that, we were doing $100 million in recurring revenue, and we got sold for $1.5 billion. So I'd say it worked out. In that, I've got to learn a lot. So, Dr. Leroy, I'm born and raised in New Mexico in Verdoso. I graduated here, love this place, wanted to stay here, not at all possible. Right? There's a massive cyber skills shortage in the world, and I wanted to go fill some of those jobs. I wanted to stay here, but it just wasn't a thing that could possibly happen and have a real career. Right? So unfortunately, I'm really happy to see that this kind of stuff is happening to me and the revenue that we do. So again, our company, I said, we actually coined the term next-gen antivirus, so if you've heard of that, that was us. And I didn't want to use that word because we were not antivirus. We did not want to be put in that bucket. We didn't want to be called AV, but it turns out, and it's one of the things I've learned during my entrepreneurial path is that you have to stick with things that people know. So we created the term next-gen AV, so to diversify ourselves a little bit. And then when we went to pitch, and I said, hey, we're next generation AV, think of us as AV without signatures. What? Oh, I know what AV is, right? It resonates in my mind. And much more importantly, I have budget for that, right? So now I'm not trying to create some sort of new budgetary cycle so I can actually sell, right? The interesting thing about our particular app is that there's no white space in the industry. 100% of all people in the world, enterprises especially, they're running some sort of AV, right? And so for every customer that I got was a customer that McAfee lost or a customer that Symantec lost. And we're still growing at a pretty impressive clip. I've got 25 million endpoints under management right now. And ironically enough, the only difference between virus and antivirus is he who's at the keyboard. So then, when it came time for our exit, and we don't really look at it as more of a beginning, right? It's a maturation process. So we went through the whole thing of let's go pitch the VC people, and inspire, get some money. We started our A round was $10 million. We did a $42 million B round. We did a $150 million C round, right? And then it came time where we still needed cash infusion, but we were done with the VCs, right? Once you get funded at that level, the VCs, we had really patient VCs. 7 years is a long time to be invested and get your return, but everybody wanted to make it happen. So we contemplated going public, and we went as far as filing a private S1. If you're less than $1 billion company, you don't have to publicly file. So we filed a private S1. That's a signal to the banking industry, right, that, hey, these guys are going to make a move. So we started going out and about and doing a roadshow with people who were potential candidates to take us out. And we met with the weirdest company, BlackBerry. And when Herma, the way he tells it, it's actually really funny the way the story is told on both sides. So Vito, who is the VP of Corp Dev at BlackBerry, the way he tells it is, for 2 years we contemplated buying an endpoint security company as part of our larger transformation strategy. This, that, and the other, we kind of narrowed down to the two we were going to look at. I hunted down Ryan Herma. The way Herma tells the story, he's like, so I was sitting at this bar, and this dude comes up next to me, and his name's Vito, and the next thing you know, we're getting bought by BlackBerry. So he calls me after he met with Vito and he said, hey, I need you to fly up to BlackBerry. And without missing a single beat, I said, why? Right? They're a phone company. It turns out they're not a phone company. They were a phone company. And 5 years ago, John Chen took the helm, stopped making hardware, right? So it was a very bold move. They were losing $800 million every single month. How's that for a business model? Right? Because, well, they were unwilling to change is really why, but they had dominated the smartphone market and had all of these commitments, contractual obligations to buy this massive amount of hardware, and then Apple handed it to them, right? They just got crushed, and they still had to pay all those debts. So John Chen came in and said, all right, I'm going to transform this company to a cybersecurity software company. And over the last 5 years, he has completely divested the hardware business, done 17 acquisitions to get the technology portfolio where he thinks it needs to be. And the last kind of crown in his cap was he wanted to compete with the endpoint market. Well, conversely, I wanted to be in the mobile market because where I see the industry going over the next few years is this confluence of computing devices where, this thing right here is a gateway to your life, right? I do 50%, maybe more, of my actual job on this phone and the other 50% on my laptop. endpoint teams are going to start to realize that an endpoint's an endpoint's an endpoint, right? So I wanted to get into the mobile game, but I just didn't have the heritage to be in it, and my dev teams didn't have it either. So we needed to partner with someone like that. So here we are contemplating going public, which is a cold, lonely place to be, beholden to the streets. Or I could get bought by BlackBerry, who has 38,000 patents, 3,000 engineers, and a lot of really cool tech, right? BlackBerry actually owns a company called Certicom, who invented elliptic curve cryptography. They've got hardware root trust, and they've got all of these toys for me to have. So I'm like, let's do that. Right? So now we're working together. If any of you bank at JP Morgan Chase, you're running our code, right? So we've got just our feelers everywhere. We're 150 million cars a day. We're on 700 million mobile phones, 25 million desktops. So we're all over it. I'm trying to bring these things together. All right. So anyway, I was going to chat about that. So I guess kind of the theme of my talk was really about whether or not we could bring some of that action here. And so I moved up to Idaho, which I love. I stayed there for 10 years, and when I decided to move over to Silence, I made the CEO. And again, I'm employee number 11. It was run out of his garage, so it wasn't like it was a huge negotiation. But I told him, you have to write in my contract that you will never ask me to leave Idaho. So he wrote in there, I will never ask Eric to leave the state of Idaho. And in his defense, he never did. But what happened is after a few years, it was limiting my upward mobility. Right? I had hit the glass ceiling of what could be done remotely from Idaho. And Idaho Falls has a lot more infrastructure than most places in New Mexico, right? And I still couldn't get it done from there. So I had to move to California. And even living in California, which is a major bummer for those of you who live in New Mexico, right? I'd rather not be there. But that's where it is. The market's crazy. There are so many. The biggest problem I have right now is lack of access to talent. I just can't find enough qualified people. And I pay stupid well. Right? I mean, I pay these guys just dumb amounts of money, and I'm constantly getting told that I don't pay enough. Right? I'm no longer paying competitive rates in the marketplace on what I consider to be ridiculous. I mean, I offered some kid right out of college 160 grand to turn me down. Jeez. I mean, it's insane, right? It's insane. But it's also wildly competitive, and this goes both directions, right? It's competitive from a skills perspective of trying to get people who are operators who are smart enough, who have experience on keyboard. And it's competitive from a business perspective too, right? There's a lot of just cool tech out there. The world has really gotten small in terms of who can make cool tech, how they can bring that cool tech to market. We kind of cracked the code on the business case, right? I think we all can agree that there's going to be a recession sometime in the next 18 months. I think it's going to be a pretty hard recession. And cybersecurity spending is just going to keep going up. Right? So right place, right time. Keeping up with the time is important, and that's one of the things that I hope Dr. Leibrock can do and New Mexico Tech can do is stay adaptive, right? Artificial intelligence is the thing. Our company is a data science company. That's all we are. 100%. I tell people we are not a cybersecurity company that uses data science. We are a data science company solving a cybersecurity problem. Right? Of our first 2 rounds of funding, which was $75 million, I spent almost 75% on that building data science division. Right? And so pumping out data scientists is critically important. Okay, so the stars means online for this to work, right? And the concept of how can I be an entrepreneur? How can I take my idea and make it big? How can I get all this to happen? You have to do it, right? There's no such thing as luck. And everybody's always going, oh, you're so lucky. That's right, I am lucky. I have parents who love me. I was lucky to meet Dr. Leibrock. I was lucky to be born in New Mexico. Like, yes, I have a lot of luck. But guess what? You got to make your own luck. Right? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Period. I always tell students and everybody I talk to, raise your hand, no matter what it is. I need someone to dig holes. I'll do it. Right? I need someone to do whatever. Sign me up. Right? Just work and take your opportunities. And that will help. That will grow you because you meet people in your life. I can't tell you how much Dr. Leibrock has helped me. And Tom Anderson back here has helped me. With that, throughout my entire career, there has been somebody who wanted to help me succeed. And a lot of that is because I'll dig holes. Right? Whatever you need. You need bottles of water, I can do that too. Right? Really, really important. But that being said, here we are in Mexico, we need to make more opportunity. There's just not enough opportunity here. Right? And so you guys all laugh when I say I pay my kids 160 grand a year. We do. Apple pays way more than that. Amazon pays more than that, right? So if you tell someone, hey, you can work from name your town in New Mexico and make 75 grand a year, or you can move to name your city on the West Coast and triple that, what do you think they're going to do? Right? And so what needs to happen is we need to enable people to make California money, but pay New Mexico prices. And then we all move back here in a heartbeat. Right? I've been living for the last decade at a green chili constant green chili withdrawals, right? I want to be here, but I need to be able to work, right? So really, that's on us. So the question is New Mexico a viable place for technology businesses? I was talking to my dad about this last night, so we're just pontificating on, can people work in Ruidoso, New Mexico? Population 6,000, elevation 7,000, totally cool place to be. Nearest airport, 3 hours, right? No, I can't work in Ruidoso. Nearest fiber. Fiber, what's that? Nobody's heard. So the key factors to business success are these two simple things, right? Assuming you have a good idea, we're going to assume all of the things are there. You've got some wicked smart kid who can't understand anything he says. He's got a great idea. It's a scalable business model. We're all going to go SaaS, right? Software as a service is the best thing ever. We have all that. What you need is access to capital and access to talent. And there's no meaningful VCs here. None. There's a couple of investment funds, right? But when I say meaningful VCs, like the dude, if I wanted to start a company tomorrow, I'd have $10 million with one text message, right? This guy's got $1 billion in capital, access to capital. None of it's here, right? And I tell him, if I told him in that text, hey, by the way, I'm going to start up my company in Albuquerque, New Mexico, he wouldn't give me any money. That's factor number two. He doesn't believe that I would have access to talent here. The number one problem I have, right? I've got 900 people under me, and access to talent is the number one problem. I can't find them, I can't retain them, it's a giant thing. It sucks, there's just not enough smart people out there. There's way fewer when we go to Mexico, right? Way fewer. And so I think, again, I would be there, a lot of people would want to be there if there was enough infrastructure to do it. So that's kind of where we need to start focusing as a unit here. But the key factors in the business success, as I mentioned, is access to bandwidth and access to an airport. Okay, if you want to be an executive, you have to be in the office. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But for the other 95% of the company, generally you can work wherever you want. I got 150 consultants who work for me, and they can live anywhere. You have these two things. Can you travel, and can you have high-speed internet? And if the answer to that is yes, I don't care where you live. Right? I like having a team that's geographically dispersed because I've got clients everywhere, all over the world. Right? So I want to have a team in New York, I want to have a team in Europe, I want to have a team all across the United States. It's nice. I will support it. I would like for people to live here. But they don't. Right? I don't have any consultants in New Mexico. I barely have any customers in New Mexico either. Right? So, can I do it? I don't know. So, my recommendations for the students in here, my recommentions to the talent is leave New Mexico. Right? Come back if you want to. It makes me really sad to say that. Leave and come back. But I highly advise you to leave the state of New Mexico. Get some experience, get some skills, get some money, and then come back and stay there, right? For the businesses, probably also leave New Mexico, right? For me, it's really hard to say, how do we get that access to capital? How do we get access to talent? How do we set up successful? And that's not to say there's not successful businesses in New Mexico. There are, right? There are lots of them. But the opportunity to just grow and scale at a rapid pace and bring some of that cutting-edge technology stuff. I know several companies who from New Mexico Tech alums who have difficulty getting access to capital and moved on, started successful companies. They didn't care, and that sucks. So my recommendation for the state, bring those things here, right? Invest in infrastructure, and it's hard. How do you tell the state we need more airports? But guess what? If you want to attract cybersecurity talent in New Mexico, you need more airports. It's annoying. I hate coming here because it's impossible to get here, right? I gotta go visit my dad. That's a 3-hour car drive, right? I certainly can't work there. But we need that infrastructure. Invest in laying down fiber. There's got to be some business cases. So how do other states do it? Tax incentives, right? That's a good one. Utah's great. You go look at Utah's tax structure. They are awesome to businesses. You want to have their businesses there. So try and make New Mexico an attractive place from that perspective, and I think we can get something done. Okay, that being said, I think that was the correct amount of time. We just wanted to open it up. It's supposed to be a collaborative workshop, so I wanted to do some open dialogue for the remainder of the time. Anyone?
Sure, I'd like to kick you off. Telling them to leave. So we're trying to build here.
Yep.
And trying to working with the Office of Innovation Commercialization, which has been doing a lot of work with bringing the finance part and bringing the C-suite needs to New Mexico. And so a little bit more on how do you suggest for getting that started. We have The other piece we're looking at is having offices for businesses that are in California have an office. One that's actually in Washington. We just talked to us about opening an office here to support because then they can access the student. And so, do you have any further words to suggest how to go about that?
I think you need to wait around. So as you know, for the last 17 years, I've been working with you. I've been working to build those pipelines, right? Tom Anderson from my international lab is here because we have a pipeline to drive students, right? We're trying to get those pipelines out, and that helps tremendously. But there's got to be a win here to convince people that, hey, we can stay, we can be successful here. And I think Albuquerque is a perfectly viable place. Right? It's got bandwidth, it's got an airport. It would be the spot to win, right? It's only 70 miles to here, so it's all there. But you got to get some VC needs to fund some company, and that company needs to hit a home run because that'll get the talent over here. And in terms of opening an office, I mean, I got 3 dev shops, right? I've got a dev shop in Portland, a dev shop in Boston, a dev shop in Irvine, where we're at, and then I've got research in Cork, Ireland. I've got research all over the place. It's about, for me then, it's low cost and high return on investment. Would I open a dev shop here? Absolutely. Right? If I thought that I could get a critical mass of people in Albuquerque that wanted to do it, and that could perform, I would open a dev shop here, absolutely. So we got to have some sort of win like that to demonstrate that there is access to talent. That's the only thing. I think the VCs that we work with, that would be the one concern for them to drop a lot of money on New Mexico company is they just don't believe that we would have the access to a high enough volume of talent that we need to really succeed. So I guess that's kind of my thought on that.
So I talked about interdisciplinary. I was on the economic development team that bought into corporations extracted into the state. So that could have been considered.
That is
Then 2 or 3 years ago, there were talent piece, and because of other things, other factors in the marketplace and manufacturing, there was a substantial reduction in workforce at that facility. Okay, but the talent piece of it is a pretty hard thing to address. It is not just the higher education entities, because I've been involved with working with Van Romero and all the research universities, trying to improve that situation on higher ed side, but it's actually even in the K-12. Okay? And the school systems in the state and the structure, Board of Regents included, okay? And how the higher institutions of education are run, are all factors that are looked at. I can tell you that when we brought Intel in, there was tax incentives, there was roads, there was schools, there was all kinds of stuff that was done. But we sat in an office with the CEO and he had a map of concentric circles looking at earthquake zones. And one of the factors that I think really brought him here was we were beyond the earthquake areas. And the facility in New Mexico, if the West Coast had a big shake and their facilities went down, it was all back in New Mexico. Okay? So I think there are some economic, governmental, and other factors. The thing I used to get when I was in economic development was that all the CEOs and everybody thinks this is a great place to live. Okay? Except for the way you tax high income and the way you tax corporate headquarters. Okay? So there has to be some substantial shift in economic structures of the way the state taxes and the way the state builds infrastructure from that tax base. Okay?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, that's a complex problem. I mean, I struggled for years to do that while I was actively doing economic development. I do agree with you that cybersecurity may be a really interesting way to do this. My numbers are 6 jobs for every experienced security guy that's out there. And the money thing is tremendously important as well. I hired people away from Lori for an Intel Corporation. Great guys. One of them is now senior architect for storage devices. But again, I don't see the path coming back. I have a son who is, at this point, a sophomore at Albuquerque Academy, which is one of the top schools in the country, not just New Mexico. And I can't see him staying in the state. It's not going to happen. Okay? The interesting thing is I was also last Sunday, I was in the governor's STEM initiative competition. I saw some brilliant students at the high school level. There were teachers coming up with, when they want to put wearable devices to sense gunshots into school, and they want to put embedded devices into people for diabetic analysis purposes. Great ideas. I just don't know. One last factor. I was the technologist in residence for high-tech accelerator called High Desert Discovery. I know the money is limited, and I know that it's also an issue of that entity tries to pair people who have experienced success, not only in Mexico, but from across the country, with companies that help them not only from a financial standpoint, but from a management standpoint, move ahead in the technology business. And all of those challenges are at play as we look for a method for success. I really laud the idea of the Center of Technical Excellence. And I thought the political battles to do the other ones in some different areas, but it's very hard to get there's two things I see. When you go to a legislative body to look for them to buy into something like this, step number one is to educate them into how it's going to help them succeed with their constituents. Because they will only help you if you can show them the win-win piece of success. I've learned that. Okay? And the second piece is they're very hesitant to touch legislative things that they don't understand. Okay? Any comments on that? I'll give you a bunch.
I agree with you 100%. So one of the reasons I left government, I wanted to go back to commission. Right? I always say I never left commission. When I was at DHS, I was constantly working on cyber legislation. Right? And so look, I'm a full-on card-carrying libertarian. I want the government out of my hair. But quite frankly, I believe the only path to success in the cyber realm is through legislation, which hurts me both here and here. Right? The thing, though, is that they do not understand technology. They who are crafting the legislation do not understand the technology. And it's incredibly difficult to try and get cyber nomenclature and let alone progressive thought processes about where the industry is going as a whole to be represented in legislation. Right? We've been fairly successful on the infrastructure piece with legislation. It's too prescriptive in my opinion, but at least now people are doing it. And it just took forever. It's so hard and so cumbersome. And all of the factors at play in politics, it's impossible. Right? Because you could never find a way to move the needle. That's why I came to the industry. I figured, you know what, I can move the needle better in the private sector because ultimately we operate the same way, all coin operating, right? And I can make a business case for things, I can get things done, right? And so I feel that we've had better impact that way. So agreed that legislative changes need to be made in order to make New Mexico successful, and the flip side of that is it's almost impossible to make meaningful legislative changes, so what do you do, right? It's a tough nut to crack. Fortunately, take this however you want to, but fortunately a lot of that older guard of legislators is now moving out and making way for younger people who grew up. You know, my dad always says he remembers a time in his house where he didn't have a TV. And I remember a time in my house where we didn't have a computer, right? And our kids maybe will remember a time in their house when they didn't have a cell phone. And so that kind of technology, people have just grown up with it, have a better understanding of how it affects their daily lives, the privacy implications, all of that stuff, are moving into meaningful political situations. I think you guys will win. I also think it will take about 20 years. Right, to get all of the changes needed. Yeah,
I'm Dr. Sharon Caballero, former president of New Mexico Highlands University. In my retirement, I connected up with our Chamber of Commerce, and we're trying to establish an incubator for cybersecurity entrepreneurs. I'd like to invite you to Las Vegas. We have the bandwidth in our real-time community, and we have the third longest airport in New Mexico. So we're
everybody loves Las Vegas, right?
Yeah. How could you not? I'm sitting here thinking, how would you deal with us if, as a state, we began a collaborative to provide you with the talent? Our little group includes our K-12 superintendents, our community college representatives, our university representatives, and a representative from ECCA University is owned by BC Council, which does most of the certification. That's just our little group. I'm thinking that everybody has these types of connections all throughout our state. Why don't you come and work with us as a collaborative state to get you the talent and get you the places?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll do it. So University Outreach rolls up to me. We have, like I said, I work with the University of Cork, Ireland, because it's one of the leading schools for artificial intelligence. We're creating some amazing talent over there. We've already done all of the legal legwork to establish who owns the intellectual property, what does the spin out look like, how do we pay students, all of that stuff. So I would be more than happy to. I think we're a pretty forward-leaning company on that. And like I said, I've got, just on my team right now, I've got 50-something open headcount, right, that I can't fill. Right? So if you guys in this room want 50-something people to have jobs, send me resumes, right? And it's not just me. Everybody I know is looking for talent. This is as much of a problem for us as it is for you guys. And I would be happy to open a center wherever that is.
So is the definition of talent bandwidth, is it time on keyboard smashing the stack and using Idachrome? Or is it TensorFlow and PyTorch from a pile of incoming data flows converted?
The answer to that is yes.
Okay.
So
At the same time, or in different individuals?
different individuals. Or look, so every technological problem that happens in a software development shop, I have that problem. Every problem you have in a business organization, I have that problem. Every problem you have in HR departments, I have that problem too. Right? We need to solve all of those. So data scientists, I have 25 data scientists who have 27 PhDs between them. Right? And one of those guys doesn't have a PhD. Imagine his day-to-day resident. Right? Retaining data scientists is wildly difficult for us, right? We've also broken every single piece of open source infrastructure in the entire world because the way we analyze them, just the supervised model for our PD32 analytics has 1.7 million features that we look at in a multi-layer neural network that we train on over 2 billion files. I have to call Amazon and say, turn the GPUs on before I train my models because I use up 100% of AWS's GPU capacity. Right? So I need some super nerds to work that problem. Right? I have 25 million endpoints under management and I try to take data and move it to the cloud and optimize storage for read. Right? For all of the jazz, I need a super nerd on that too. Right? I'm willing to hire some of my best guys. I hired them as interns. I have a serious internship program. I bring them in by the barrel. And if they're good, I want to keep them. I convert them to year-round interns. I pay them while they're in college and then I get them the day they graduate. Right? So we're investing in the long term. I need some super hitters. Right? The problem with super hitters is that they're all jerks and I don't want to work with them. So, but I need help with those guys, right? You gotta have a couple of super hitters, and then I need people who are smart, talented, and fit to the new times who want to work really hard. And that's actually a challenge too. For all of the, what I call involuntary attrition, right, which means I fired you, it's normally because of work ethic. Right? They just don't want to do it. And that's a tough one, right? So we need that combination.
When I was science advisor, Governor Richard, when we started the Mexico Green Initiative, that was Japan involved. They invested $57 million here in 2 projects. We had 9 global Fortune 500 companies from Japan working here. When we transitioned administration, Governor Martinez, he's not interested, he just died. So one of the things I learned is you can't count on government for long term. You talked about getting the state engaged. So given that we've got a 4 or maybe a major opportunity for Green Grid development now with our new administration, what would you say we should ask the state to be doing in those 4 years?
Tax incentives and infrastructure, right? It's, again, huge businesses work exactly the same way people do, and I already said that people are motivated only by money, right? We all pretend that we're not, we have politics and all this stuff we care about, of course, but we act because of money. And businesses think that exact same way. And so when I go and make a resource justification plan to John Chen, the CEO, and I say, look, here's what I want to do in the next 5 years. Right? I see the market doing this. I need to invest in these areas ahead of time, even though the market's not there yet, because I need my technology to be ready when the market gets there. I need to invest in people with these skills. There's not enough of them. We need to start our pipeline, all of that. I build this whole super complex plan. And then I put a pin somewhere on the globe. Right? I normally put a few. And he immediately comes back with the analysis of, all right, let's do the tax breakdown. Let's do all of the reasons to choose one of those locations, right? So give John Chen some reasons to put it here, right? And tell, I say, I've got great access to talent in Las Vegas, New Mexico, John. You're going to say great, right? Top data scientists coming out of New Mexico, whatever it happens to be. And the infrastructure is there, the tax incentives are there, I can have it for lower cost. At the end of the day, that's what it is. I need a cost-benefit analysis that says, invest in New Mexico. And then I will. right? And I think all businesses will think that. But the other thing is marketing, right? Outside, once you develop those things and the government says yes, and you take a 4-year opportunity to build all that stuff, you need to tell us that it's happening. Okay, so we have, marketing is actually a thing. The reason I'm in Cork Island, you think I did the research and built the spreadsheet and identified Cork Island? No, most definitely not. Some business development representative from Cork Island came to Silicon Valley and came to my headquarters and said, let me tell you why you should work at my university. And it was such a compelling pitch that I wrote him a check. Right? And we did it. Nobody from New Mexico has done that. I came over and said, hey, come to Albuquerque. Let me tell you this cool thing that we have that you should write me a check. Write you a check. Right? So,
But I'm going to tell you from this pearl.
I want to. I already know about this place. Everywhere I go, the pipeline gets built to come back to here, and I can't find it here. Yeah, that one. Right? I will do work. Right? You want me to come to Las Vegas? I will come to Las Vegas. I'll come talk to high school about curriculum, like whatever I can do to move the needle.
So, yeah, I think everybody's collaboration part of the discussion we have here is great. So my question here, if there's one single thing to open up this collaboration and bring some better economic development. I'm from Albuquerque, Mark probably allude to this because he started his company here, but was also in Albuquerque with Risson. But what thing, as you're discussing here, that you would need to try to get, that resource put together, that funding? I mean, can you just highlight for me what it is today that you're looking for that you bring New Mexico into that?
So there's a difference of what I'm looking for as an individual and what I think the entire ecosystem needs to thrive, right? So you need diversity. You mentioned Intel. Intel is a hardware business that is going to be subject, their fiscal success is going to be subject to the whims of Donald Trump and his tariffs, right? So you need to diversify. You need hardware. We all need hardware, right? You need software people. You need cybersecurity and non-cybersecurity, right? You've got IoT and AI. Those are big for a while. Okay, the whole 5G stuff. So those are kind of the longer-term plays that need to happen. There's plenty of capital. Remember, access to capital and access to talent. That's what makes businesses successful. And access to capital. I mean, I know tons of VCs. If we get a proper collaboration going in here and we want to go pitch, big VCs and go tell them, hey, let's make a New Mexico development fund. Let's each kick in $50 million and put together a $500 million fund and do it. Because it takes real money, right? I have seen companies be successful off $1 million day round or bootstrap from grandma's retirement. But it doesn't happen often, right? Because what you actually need is more people. It's all about who you know, right? Best technology in the world, that's about 10% of making a business successful. And so you need those big name VCs who know everybody and they know what's going on behind the scenes. One of the reasons that we were very successful is because when we were doing it and when we were a nothing company, when we were in stealth, we were tied to all the other companies in stealth. There's 100 companies in stealth mode right now doing groundbreaking stuff that nobody knows about, right? Because we're not tied into the scene. And so we need to bring that scene here. And that's the thing. I think this is the great start, right? It's the collaboration. So I like to bring the VCs here, right? When we think we have something to pitch them, I'll put them all on an airplane and fly. I'll put us on their airplane and fly us out there, right? And have the talk. They're open-minded. They care about money. Right.
So follow up to that, now that your CEO has moved on, I think that was recently, a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
How do we approach him? He get, his wealth after he closed out.
I mean, he just texted me today to come to a whiskey tasting at his house, so he's easy to approach. He's a private investor in tons of stuff. You have a good idea, I'll text him for you. Okay. Stu's a very approachable guy, and he will see the fun. Right. But the thing,
let's put a plan together. That's what I'm looking for. I mean, it's a collaboration effort that I'm trying to get to really solve that problem that we need, whether it be the education, the collaboration, whatever that may be, to get those VC dollars and come up with a really good idea that would attract.
Like I said, we need a win, right? So if you've got the idea, if you know the kid with the plan, let's get the plan and make a pitch, right? Once we get one successful company here, that VC will be looking for more, right? If I introduce that guy, that VC, to Dr. Lee Rock, and it's her student, that's the all-star, right? And we put the business around him. That's actually how it works. So I do a lot of consulting with the VCs to talk to them both about tech and people, right? Because you need a charismatic leader. Like there's an algorithm for a successful business leader and an algorithm for a successful tech leader, right? And once you can put those two things together, a lot of times that's what the VCs do, right? You take them the idea and the likelihood of success and something that they go, ooh, I need that one, right? And they put the business around you, and then you're off to the races, right? Everyone who tries to home grow it, it can work, but those are what I call lifestyle companies, right? And there's nothing wrong with lifestyle companies. If you want to work 9 to 5 and see your kids, that's cool, right? But we're talking about driving economic growth, right? And that requires cash, right? Cash is like blood to the body, man. If it doesn't flow, you die. So we got to bring that money here.
So one question I have when start being experienced and start company, not only do you need the talent and the kid of the idea, but VCs are not going to really want to invest in a kid being the CEO of the company.
No.
So how do you retain a CEO level executive also in the state of New Mexico or network?
Very easy. People are human motivated. How do you retain a CEO? Use an incentive package. Good one. Right? So what happens is normally the organic growth of a startup typically goes like this. The co-founder is the CEO, right? And that works for a certain stage. It worked with our CEO, Stu, because he was a big boy already. He had already started a company and sold it for $100 million. He was the CTO of McAfee. He was already connected enough to do it end to end, but normally that's not the case in startups. So when you start a company, and you need to be willing to say, I'm probably not the right guy to take a company through all of the stages of growth, right? It's very different. For us to go from who is Silence to getting our first customer, that was a very different type of business to going from customer 1 to customer 100 to growing a business from 100 million revenue to 500 million revenue. It's all different. And so if the business is here and the tech is here and the taxes are here, the VCs will put the right CEO here, right? And if the company is, it's easy, it's called RSU, right? You just get a CEO, you say you're going to be the CEO of this company, I need you to take it from 100 million to 500 million. Here's your package if you do that. Go to Albuquerque, right? You move to Albuquerque. That's how it works, and it does work. So that part's easy. It's getting the companies to that stage that's hard. I think there's ideas here, right? Ideation is where it all starts. And so the incubation, that I made earlier about starting an incubator, that's a great idea. Right? So we actually ran an incubator internally, and I figured we should look up the Y Combinator. They have a really great model. So basically, just feed the winners and starve the losers. So internally to our company, because we thought, hey, we have a lot of really smart people here doing really cool things. Let's see if we can incubate some of that and build our new products. Right? So I put a call out to everybody, and I said, everybody with good ideas, bring them to me. And I actually made an email address called ideas@silence.com. Right? Send me all of your stuff. And when I see one that I like, I'll give you money. And what we do is we just take you out of your job, we put you in a little program with a couple of dudes, and I give you a timeline. Right? Here's what you have to do. And if you can demonstrate success, then we will grow. 2 products have come out of that, right? Persona came out of that, our next generation, we know that as a fully automated UEBA system. Again, like I said earlier, it's not UEBA. I don't know what that is, so I have to publish that. That came from internal, from an incubator process. So you do that here, you incubate those things, you incubate a lot of them, right? It's just like any other crop. You have to put a lot of them in the ground and water them to see which ones grow. And as they start growing, give them more water. And the ones that don't sprout, kill them fast, fail fast. Right? So I think getting incubator programs going here would be great. There's plenty of young people here. Even old people have good ideas sometimes too. Yeah.
So have you given this talk to the governor, have you sat with the governor here?
I have not.
Next
Sure.
thing, on your pipeline, are you only going as far as college, or are you going down to Deaton High School?
I'll go all the way down. So actually, several years ago, so we want to talk about frustration. So there's a world-class cybersecurity training organization called SANS, and I offer courses for them, and I teach those courses as well, trying to develop a pipeline. I went and pitched the CEO of SANS. I said, I grew up in a small town. They want to do some incubation work. The high school is garbage, right? The only reason I learned anything is because I was interested in stuff. Ridoso had to teach me anything. So I said, I want to take some money and put it in there, and let's go build a computer science program at Rugoso High School. And he said, cool, I'll give you 50 grand. I'm like, sweet, they would love 50 grand. So I put a whole proposal together. I went to Rugoso High School and I said, I have $50,000 for you. I want to build a computer lab, and all I need you to do is to build a curriculum and get a certified instructor in here, and we'll pay for the whole thing. They couldn't make it happen. I went over there time and time again to give them free money, to give them resources, and they just didn't do it.
Taos can do it.
Money.
I've been doing it for 7, 8 years by myself at Taos High School, so.
I'll get you money. That's
Yeah.
easy.
Wait, no, I was just curious about, I did co-op when I was in college for accounting. At that time, accounting was short category. Now you've got, computer science, and I've got computer. And so I didn't know if you could do co-op at the real age of high school when these kids aren't doing athletics, they're at home crunching computers.
Yeah.
And that's what I was kind of curious about because, and then I was also kind of curious about you tapping into teachers and doing summer internships for teachers, you know, you teach the teacher, they come back, you know,
Happy to do all of
and
that.
get your kids.
Happy to, one of my best guys, who was, I watched him turn 16, I watched him turn 17, I watched him turn 21, right? This kid came over to Stuart McClure's garage sale and said, do you have any old computer parts around here? So we're Steve chuckles, he's like, yeah, I've heard a thing or two about computers. And he brings this kid to me, he's like, this kid's really smart. Like, he came over to my house at a garage sale and he blew me away with how smart he is. See what you can do with him. So I sat down with him, I'm like, dude, this kid is really freaking smart. So I called his mom, I'm like, can I hire your kid? And she was like, absolutely. So at age 16, he became an intern for me, and then he became a year-round intern for me, and then we put him through college, and now he's one of my best coders, right? You got to invest in all portions of the pipeline, right?
So he's committed now to integrating with our MST program in the computer science track. He just made that commitment.
Hey, whatever you need. I love this place. I will, you know, and I got a lot of energy, so I'm happy to do this kind of stuff. And the thing is, the ball needs to move. And back when I experienced that frustration with Ruidoso High School, it kind of killed my morale for working here. And we have success with tons of other universities. I have a guy, his entire job is university relations. That's all he does. His whole entire job is he goes around and he works with schools and he gets pipelines going. I think we had like 500 interns this summer. They all just got laid off because it's school season. But the few that we thought were awesome are probably going to get year-round internship offers, and the pipeline just keeps going.
From just for you guys at science, from an operational standpoint, what do you see the most challenging cyber threat today? I mean, there's things that, you know, we talk about all this collaboration education part, which is important. We need those resources, but we're under attack now, man. And we got to figure things that are not solving some of those problems.
Sure.
What are some of those challenges you see, top 2 or 3,
So
or what are you dealing
it
with?
depends where you're trying to solve for, right? So the solution will depend on the problem. So we work, every branch of the military is my customer, right? Pretty much every forward deployed device in Afghanistan is running my code on, right? So that's a bespoke problem with a bespoke solution. It's something that we care about. I've got some of the best super ninjas that ever came out of the NSA run my anti-exploitation team. Like, we've got hitters that do that. So we solve that problem. The problems that those guys face are substantially different than what the city or whatever municipality is facing with ransomware. Completely different problem space, right? I spent the bulk of my career on Anderson does back here is all about critical infrastructure protection, right? So I was one of the guys who started the ICS service, the Industrial Control System Cyber Emergency Response Team. It's a government level, it's an international effort. It's working really well for a very specific problem. So the thing is, criminals, what do you think they're motivated by? Money, right? And so they're always going, so you have military grade criminals who are geopolitically motivated and they are on missions, and that's a different problem set. Take them out of the equation, right? It's a different problem. Everyone else is after dollar bills, y'all. They want to buy an island, right? And so ransomware is it this year, and last year, probably next year. It's going to be something else next year, right? I think it's going to be centered around mobile devices, because this is not just a tool for doing it. This is a gateway into your soul, right? Everything about you is on here. Your credit card number, your fingerprint, your passwords for everything you own. It's right here. Nobody is doing it. Why do you think I went to BlackBerry? Not because of their super awesome brand recognition. I went there because they have some of the world's best mobile engineers, and I think this is where the problem space is going. So I'm investing heavily right here, right? So some of those cool ideas we're talking about getting, put them together in the mobile space. Maybe I'll just buy those companies, right?
Would you categorize, so that's great, thank you for that. Would insider threat be a big one as well?
Heck yeah.
That seems to be like right now, as far as our adversaries and our people turning against our own government. I mean,
Absolutely.
I see that and I don't know if there's a solution out there for insider threat, but I see that hasn't been really something to
Sure.
address that.
Coming in January, Silence Persona specifically designed to target insider threat. It's actually true. Because it is a real problem. Okay, now is it going to solve insider threat across the board? No. But that's actually an anomaly detection problem, in my opinion, right? But I think insider threat is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. I mean, we were just telling the story earlier about getting called in on this incident response to do all of this stuff because someone stepped. Turns out it was the CISO, right? It was actually the guy doing the crime. So it happens. It definitely happens. And there's plenty of money there, right? DLP. I shouldn't tell you this because my next product is in DLP. I'm already filing patents for it. But data loss is a huge problem, and because the way DLP works is basically it's document classification and document protection. And document classification relies entirely on humans, and relies on them being honest and thorough. And humans are neither of those things, right? And so I want to solve that problem with machine learning. The other piece, the DRM piece, that's a solved problem. We know how to do that. So we bought a company to solve the DRM piece, and I'm growing the data science piece. I'm going to stick them together. I think next gen DLP will probably be $1 billion market. So there's lots of these little sub-markets within cybersecurity. I mean, just the endpoint protection piece of the cybersecurity market is $20 billion this year. That's a lot of spend, right? And then you get all these little specializations. But what I'm seeing in the industry, and this might be germane to all these good ideas we're having, is it's all about agent and vendor consolidation. We have too many agents on our machines and we work with too many people. So anyone who can come in and, it used to be build a better mousetrap, now it's better build a persistent mousetrap. We're moving from best of breed to best of suite. We've got to do everything with one agent. So that's kind of the problem in the endpoint space right now. So if you can come up with a bridge that ties all the existing capabilities together, because we have a deal, we have an endpoint, we have a this, and we have that, and we have the other, and the user experience of using them all together is horrible, right? So he who can build like a single pane of glass that works with existing technologies, big difference, for sure. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Eric? Somebody's got to give him a hard one. Come on.
You said that you guys go out and heavily with Amazon and say call them and turn on the GPU. How interested would you be in investing in creating those resources and infrastructure? Because that, and finding people to collaborate with in that house.
For us, not interested. But Amazon is very interested, and I know those guys, so that's something we do. There's actually a big movement right now to putting like convolutional neural network capability on the chip so that we don't have to go do it in the cloud. I don't know whether or not it's going to go that way. I don't kind of want to see it work, but it also means a complete retooling for me, which is going to be horrible. But that doesn't mean that we can't bring it together, right? So I think infrastructure that can do high performance AI stuff that can work on a phone or the edge is going to become a really important place in the world of 5G. So that's a nice place to target, and then you don't have to build the infrastructure. But if you do want to do that, because that's what it's one for you, I'll hook you up with the AWS guys. That's a problem they solve every day. All right, Dr. Lieberman knows how to get a hold of me, so.
Absolutely.
How do we get a hold of you? It's ideas.
I'll give you time, John, right?
Okay.
No, don't send it to ideas. That goes to their own. It's ecornelius@silence.com. But I have business cards, so I'll leave a stack of them. Okay. Cool. All right. I'll let you back to
Thank you, Eric, for the very enlightening and invigorating discussion. For everyone, I think our breakout session begins at 1 o'clock, is that correct? So the Smart Grid, Green Grid is in this room. I'm trying to remember. IoT